John, thanks for joining us this month.
My pleasure, Jeff. Nice to be here.
I see that the AICPA issued a new audit sampling guide. I got to tell you, it seems to me like that subject is as old as the hills. What could be new about audit sampling?
Well, you're right, Jeff. It is a concept that's been around as long as auditing's been around. But what's happened in recent years is peer review, as well as quality control, has identified numerous deficiencies in the application of sampling in audits. Due to these deficiencies being identified, the AICPA, through the Auditing Standards Board, thought it would be helpful to try to both clarify, I think, and come up with more understandable standards.
Well, I mean, it's great to talk about auditing theory or sampling theory, John, but let's talk about the auditing standards themselves. I mean, what SAS 39 actually requires. I mean, does it require the auditors to use statistical sampling, or does it provide requirements for when you're performing audit sampling applications?
Let me, just for the audience, SAS 39 is titled Audit Sampling. It was a standard that came out many, many years ago. It's a standard that was written using a lot of statistical jargon. Because it was written using a lot of stat jargon, many folks, when they looked at SAS 39, assumed it was a statistical sampling application standard. But I emphasize again, the title of this standard is Audit Sampling. And it includes guidance related to both stat sampling and non-stat sampling. But because it was written in statistical terms, it's frequently been ignored by many simply because they don't believe they're doing stat sampling. And if this guidance is about stat sampling, then they have no need to become familiar with it. In answering your question, what SAS 39 says, and SAS 39, you may recall, was amended by SAS 111 of the same title, sampling. It says that if you have significant items in a population, they should be withdrawn from the population before you sample the remainder of that population. A significant item is normally an item either above your materiality threshold or above your tolerable misstatement threshold. So they get selected out of the population, then you would sample the remainder of that population. That's one requirement in SAS 39. Second is that population should be stratified into their common elements in order to become more efficient in the conduct of the sample. Meaning if I have high dollar amounts in a population, medium dollar amounts in a population, and low dollar amounts in a population, it would be more efficient to split that population into thirds for each of those categories, and then select a sample from each of those three populations, rather than to select a sample from the population as a whole. The reason for that is, of course, if you have significant dollar variations in a population, then that increases the variability of outcome. And the greater the variability of outcome, the larger your sample size must be to be representative.